So good evening and welcome everybody to the City of Lake Forest Park City Council regular meeting for, what's the date today? Goodness, it is May 28th. Yeah. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd be happy to lead us in that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Please be seated. A wonderful big crowd here tonight. Colleagues, I understand that there is a change to the agenda. Deputy Mayor or Vice Chair, would you like to make? Vice Chair. I'll try to be. It's on. Can you hear me now? Okay, we'll try to bring it in a little closer here. Sorry about that. Deputy Mayor or Vice Chair, would you want to opposite? There we go.
I'd like to move that we move item 6 on the agenda after item 7. So moving the public hearing after proclamations. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to amend the agenda to move proclamations after presentations before public hearings. Any objections? All those in favor of adopting the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Guys have it. Thank you, Council, very much. With that, we're going to be moving on to public comments. And the Council will not be accepting online public comments. Comments are limited to a 3-minute time limit. This is an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on any item within its purview or control. Oral public comments are accepted in person to ensure the orderly conduct of the meeting. Speakers are limited to a 3 minutes. Council members may not respond during public comments, but may ask staff to follow up if appropriate. Public comments may not be used to promote or oppose candidates for public office or ballot measures. The mayor or presiding officer may interrupt comments that violate these instructions, are unrelated to the council's purview or control, or otherwise hinder the orderly conduct of the meeting. I swear that gets longer every time I read it, Matt. And this is bittersweet because this will be, the tradition is, as you all know, the chief brings up the public comment sheet, and thank you, Chief. And with that, we're going to start with Sarah Phillips. Welcome. Please join us at the podium.
Oh, yes, you're the chief. Chief, we're going to miss you. Hello, my name's Sarah Phillips, and I'm just here about the community town hall. I wanted to thank you all for coming. We found it to be and to remind you that it was sponsored by the Lake Forest Park Rotary, the Climate Hub, the Stewardship Foundation, and Third Place Commons. And like you, we saw over 100 people. For me, it was wonderful when we saw people we didn't know come in and ask questions. I sent you all just late, so you probably didn't get a copy of the evaluations. We looked at and there are verbatim copies of the comments that people made to us. And I just summarized that people thought the questions were too long and the answers were too long. But other than that, they liked it. And the Third Place Commons is going to take the lead on another one next year. They've set the date for April 28th, so you can check your calendar. And they're trying to sort of have a different kind of format that would allow people to have sort of more in-depth conversations with the council members on specific issues. Maybe, I don't know, we haven't figured out the content yet, but it would be a way to give you a chance to talk on specific issues, perhaps. Anyway, thank you very much. We appreciate your participation.
Thank you very much, Sarah. There's no one else signed up. I just want to check if there's anyone in the council chambers. Mayor Johnson, please join us. It's good to see you.
This is awesome. I haven't been behind Mike in a long time. So,
You have the timer running, right?
Keep it going. So first off, Chief, congratulations. Chief, I actually got to be lucky one that hired Chief. For a while, I thought it was the worst decision I ever made, and then it turned out to be a pretty good one. So, Chief, thank you very much. Thank you all you guys out here. Glad to see you. Thanks. I look forward to being pulled over by our new officer. Wasn't there. So, and thank you, Council. Thanks for having that the thing at the city, over there at the Third Place Commons. I think I've been telling you to do that for a while, so it's glad you did that. And again, Chief, this is your night. Have a great night. Enjoy your retirement. And I hope you do too. So it's good to see the kids. Have a good night. Thank you, guys. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Mayor. Yeah, good to see you. Thank you for the comments. Hey, is there anyone else in council chambers that'd like to make public comments? Okay, with that, we'll close public comment. Thank you, everybody. And we're moving on to a very special moment. We're going to honor Chief Harden. It's bittersweet for all of us because he has served us incredibly admirably with distinction and with honor. And he's a good friend to the community and to me and to everyone here. So we wish him all the best in his retirement. First of all, we'll start with a proclamation honoring and thanking Michael Harden, City of Lake Forest Park Police Chief. Whereas Chief Mike Harden will retire from the City of Lake Forest Park Police Department after 25 years of dedicated service to the city and its residents on May 31st, 2026. And okay, you want to have a bet who's going to tear up before me or him? Whereas Chief Harden's commitment to public service began early in life, serving as a police explorer from ages 12 through 15, followed by his early career with the West Covina Police Department. And whereas Chief Harden joined the City of Lake Forest Park Police Department as a police officer on April 18th, 2001, beginning a distinguished career of service to the community. And whereas January 1st, 2007, Chief Harden became a K-9 officer, serving in a specialized role that strengthened public safety services and reflected his devotion to the profession. Many of us remember Dakota, right? Very well. And whereas Chief Harden was promoted to sergeant on October 1st, 2011, and later served as administrative sergeant beginning October 1st, 2013, taking on increased leadership and operational responsibilities within the department. And whereas on July 12th, 2019, Chief Harden was appointed acting police chief, and on September 3rd, 2019, he was promoted to police chief of the City of Lake Forest Park. And whereas Chief Harden supported meaningful community engagement through programs such as National Night Out, Kids Safety Day, Shop with a Cop, the Community Police Academy, and youth-focused police explorer opportunities. And whereas Chief Harden helped advance modern and compassionate public safety practices, including regional crisis response partnerships, officer training and de-escalation, and less lethal options, and collaborative approaches to connecting individuals in crisis with care. And whereas throughout his service, Chief Harden demonstrated steady leadership, professionalism, and a sincere commitment to the safety and well-being of the city of Lake Forest Park residents, businesses, visitors, and city staff. Now, therefore, the mayor and the city council of the City of Lake Forest Park do hereby thank and congratulate Mike Harden, City of Lake Forest Park Police Chief, on his retirement from public service, and wish him the very best for a very happy retirement. Signed this 28th of May, 2026. Steve, you have the mic as long as you'd like it.
All right. You guys know me and I can talk. All right. Thank you, Mayor French, Council, and everybody in this room and everybody that hears this. Just about 7 years ago, I came into this position as police chief for this awesome city. I was blessed to do a job that is amazing. Over the past few months, I've contemplated this very day and what I would say. There are way too many people to thank, as I have been blessed to be surrounded for so many years with incredible people. Those people created the success that I was blessed with. I thought about community members, Rotary, Block Watch, Crime Watch, National Night Out, and all those interactions that helped our community and those incredible special relationships that were built. I thought about all the city council members and mayors I've worked with and the bonds that were built. So many council members like Philippa actually moving the agenda item, placing me as your police chief.
Tom and Semra, you've been on the dais my entire time as a chief. And Mayor Johnson for picking me to do this job. Where you at? There you go. I thought about the city employees throughout the years, like Public Works, HR, our judges, Portnoy and Grant, city clerks, Evelyn and Matt. Matt, you do amazing back there. Attorneys, Sarah Roberts, that's been with me from day one, and Kim. But especially though is Phil and Lindsay that went through the fire of the last 7 years of this pandemic, police funding, riots, and insane, and now I'm going to say it is insane legislative changes, crazy budgets, and all the staffing craziness with me. You two are very special to me, and thank you. I could spend so much time mentioning a lot of city staff over the years. And then I thought about the PD staff, the sergeants, lieutenants, and corporals that we had, chiefs over the years. I worked with 73 different staff members, 10 of them civilians, 63 of them police officers. The memories flooded in, working with this staff in field training, K9, special events, crazy patrol calls, and then eventually supervising and leading this agency. It would be impossible for me to name everyone that's been on this journey, or we would be here literally all night long. I do want to say a special shout out to our interim chief, Diego. Diego, come here. So I owe a debt of gratitude to my command staff of Rhonda, Lieutenant Lehman, and Ross Adams that helped me throughout my role as chief. But Diego, and not a but Diego has been with me from the beginning and stuck with me the entire time. The pandemic, defunding police, bill changes, incredible staffing challenges, and all the wildness that has happened. Thank you, Diego, for being my partner through the wild ups and downs, taking care of me, knowing me so well, asking me if I'm doing okay, reading my mood, what can I do, having my back. Yeah, you can. And then I thought about my family, all my kids knowing me only as a police officer and the law enforcement world. But most of all, my best friend, my wife, which we will hit our 29th wedding anniversary next month, and my best friend of 37 years, she's been through everything with me. Can't look. All the ups and downs, and we built an incredible life. Thank you, and I love you so much. You can clap for this. I also wanted to read a few words from my speech the day I became chief. I started off by saying, thank you for all the confidence you have expressed in me, and I will not let you down. Next, I spoke about my personal journey from baby cop to getting this position. And then I said, whatever your beliefs are, fate, luck, things happen for a reason. I personally believe God and his plan, and I have been truly blessed by him. Proverbs 19:21 says, many are the plans of a person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. And wow, what was planned for the coming years, his plan prevailed, because I did not know I was going to go through that. Even with the incredibly tough time it was going to be. And then I said, and keep this perspective, this is before the pandemic and all the craziness that were about to come. Lake Forest Park has been very good to me and my family. I'm very grateful, and I thank the entire police department staff. The types of crimes may change over time, but our responsibility is no matter what changes happen, and did they ever, we prevent crime and disorder. But how police officers work within the community has changed over the years with more accountability and a much better working relationship with our citizens. Crime goes down when we have the officers to address it. So I'm going to stop right there. Thank you for bringing in the staff that we've needed over the years and got it to that point. But the key is working with the community as a force multiplier. The community is more informed, and they're an extension of our police department. And by that, the police can be more effective. And then I said, I expect the police department to be organized and focused on accomplishing our mission. In police department agencies, Patrol is the foundation. Every member of this agency and every unit in this agency will be judged on what their contribution is to the core mission. And then I said to the command staff and supervisory officers, I commit myself to empower you and develop you as potential as leaders. I give you the authority to accomplish this mission and work on making better police officers every chance, every day. Officers need to know when they are not following the mission, and to correct that behavior will not be ignored. Honest mistakes will be dealt with differently than misconduct. Praise them, build them up, reward them, and let them know you care about them, and in turn they will succeed, and so will you. Be loyal to this city, for they are loyal to you. And then I stated that day, to the officers, I promise to do all I can to see that you are properly trained, equipped, supervised, and supported. I believe in you. I believe you became police officers because you sought moral clarity and wanted to make a difference in people's lives and the life of your city. I promise to work hard to create an environment of family, health, and wellness worthy of your honor you bring to this job. I want an environment where you feel like you matter and your creative ideas are listened to. You are responsible for the morale and reputation of this department, just as I am. I not only expect you to refrain from misconduct, I expect you to prevent it. And then I said to the community, I want to be open, accountable, accessible as a police department to your concerns. Our police department will use all the tools at its disposal to create a safe community. I am in a new environment as chief. It will take time for me to understand and learn to navigate it. But I want all of those who operate in this environment that I assume goodwill. I believe our goals for this city are the same. I am sure from time to time we will have our disagreements about the means, but not the end. I will be an advocate for the needs of this department. I will advocate for it at council. But I know it's not all about the police. It's about the city and the community. And I know many worthy services find themselves competing for resources. And then I said, I promise I will do my best to manage the resources provided by you to the department and will take your needs, issues, and concerns seriously while endeavoring to respond to them appropriately. In return, I expect your support for our efforts in a true partnership with us as we work together to overcome challenges. I look forward to close and productive relationships with these mayors, this council, the city administrator, the city attorney, and the community. I've been impressed by the caliber of people that have devoted themselves to public life here in Lake Forest Park, and I have confidence in this community and its officers. Together, we're going to achieve great things. So looking back at this speech and the intentions that I had, I hope that I met those expectations over the last 7 years. I've had my fingerprints all over this department. I care deeply about the PD and the community. I'm going back to my strong faith in God. And the earlier verse I read, many are the plans in a person's heart, but the Lord's purpose that prevails. And what a plan it's been over the last 25 years. I hope I hear the words from Matthew 25:23, well done and good and faithful servant. You've been faithful. I told myself that I wanted to leave on a high, not in trouble, which we've seen in the news on some people. Not hating this job, or just too old and pushed out by these guys saying, get out of here. I wanted a servant-led leadership group. I believe we have that culture. I've said to numerous people that the chief's position is at the bottom, not at the top. My sole job is to lead with a servant's attitude and build up my staff, give my commanders everything possible for them to do their job well. And in turn, they do the same for their staff. And ultimately, the officers are at the top. They are to be lifted and promoted. And when they do their job well, it rolls down to me. And when they don't do their job well, it rolls down to me. So council, incoming chief, fellow officers, and community, please take care of our police officers. They are the heart of this city. And lastly, from the speech, I said to my family, Amy, Justin, Ryan, and Ella, I love you guys. I'm so thankful for the journey that led us here and on to the next chapter of our lives. I want to thank God for this journey and blessing me with my family and everyone around me. I'm closing with this verse, John 13:34, love each other, just as I have loved you. And I love you all. You've heard me say that over and over again with this community. Now, after serving as your police chief for this great city, I'm closing this chapter and heading on to a next one. Thank you.
Oh my
the
goodness.
dais and come to the front. I'd love a picture with everybody.
Yeah, we've got some more things here to do too.
Phil, young Lindsay, Jessica, Mark, Noah, you come up. This is a Chiefs coin and I'm running out here. It's on, I'm leaving them all out to you guys. Thank you very much. Actually, screw that. All right. You're not into hugs, too bad. Thanks, guys. Mayor, thank you very much, buddy. Thank you, Paula. Thank you. Absolutely. There you go. Thanks, Larry. Phil. Thank you, Paula. Okay, hold on. We got. Thanks, Mark. I know you only been a little while, but thanks, buddy. You're doing great. No, the same. You're gonna kill it. You're gonna do great. Lindsay, awesome job. Thank you. Appreciate it. Jessica, thank you. All right, I'm gonna get a picture with everybody here.
Well, before you do that,
Oh, all
we
right.
have a little HR stuff here. So
Okay.
first of all, technically you're on the job till tomorrow, right?
Sunday. but-
Sunday. So congratulations for 25 years of service. They got you a pin. Actually,
Oh,
we have your plaque here, sir, and it says, with sincere gratitude and appreciation for 25 years of dedicated service to the city of Lake Forest Park, Chief Michael Harden began his service for the city on April 18th, 2001, and faithfully served the community with professionalism, integrity, and leadership throughout his distinguished career. In September 2019, he was appointed Chief of Police, where he continued his commitment to public safety, community partnership, and excellence in law enforcement. The mayor and city council proudly recognizes Chief Harden's lasting contributions and thank him for his years of service and dedication to the residents of Lake Forest Park. April 18th, 2001 to May 31st, 2026, 25.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Sign here.
One about done.
Awkward. You take me through yourself.
Well, you got Diego, sorry. Yeah, you got it. I got it. Sorry. Got it back.
All right, everybody, 1, 2, 3. Perfect, got it.
All right.
Thank you for entertaining us today. Huh?
Yeah, it is.
Yes, I do. Hang on, guys. You should have came back here. Hold on, right here. Come up here. No, you don't have anything to do.
Okay, why don't we take 5-10 minute recess? At least it was
5-10 minutes?
Yeah, is anybody else?
Okay.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
All right.
Sure.
I'm ready to go.
We're gonna make a quick phone call.
Okay.
Let's
Just a
do
quick phone call.
10 minute.
Oh, it's not, it's gonna be 1 minute.
Oh.
Is there anything on the radio?
No, Norcom just did a final, so
This.
They already did it?
it's no.
Oh,
Well, it's a
call.
Okay, we'll call it. Yeah.
Okay.
Show the tradition. Yeah.
Here, go for it, Ross. We'll just
All right.
do it. Let's just
We're just
do it.
gonna
We're
do it.
going live.
We're going. Sounds perfect. All right. For everybody's edification, well, Ross, would you like to describe it, Commander?
Yes,
What this is about?
yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for honoring the chief tonight. This is awesome. It is usually him that gives the speech and talks about what this is all about. For everyone here that is not involved in law enforcement, our lifeline is our dispatch center. And every day, an officer signs into service, and at the end of their shift, they sign out of service. And this is a good morning and a good night from our dispatchers. And when an officer works their final shift and they sign out of service for the last time, we get a tribute from the dispatch center. And it is I don't expect it, Chief, but maybe, who knows, tough guy. We a lot of times get tears from people. But it is a very memorable event. It is part of our tradition, and it is just ingrained in every fabric or the fabric of law enforcement. So I'm very excited that we get to do this. Chief is going to step forward in a moment and sign out of service for the last time.
So I guess dispatch already did a little call out that we all have missed. I'm gonna do my style anyway. There's nothing going on right now.
Yeah.
Chief's privilege.
Oh, let's see here. There's no tears. Lincoln 1. I appreciate the call out. I'm calling out of service for the final time. I wanted to let the dispatchers know that I appreciate them and taking care of the officers back, and the officers have the dispatchers backs as well. Love you all. Love this community. I'm out of service. Good night. There you go. I am done. Peace out.
Way to go, Chief.
Got one more thing to do, and we need to go to a swim meet, my family, pretty soon. So you have fun with your transportation plan and all that fun stuff. Go.
Already on retirement time.
Wrap it up, folks.
That we give to everybody who goes, who retires, and in this case, it's a, special thing because of course, the chief of police, so everybody sign the banner, and I need you to sign this one, chief, for us, because in our room, whatever.
So I'm going to give the story here because I can. And I know many of you have heard this story. So if you want to take a nap for a sec. I've always felt I'm a huge hockey fan. I love sports. I love when they take care of folks that have retired and they throw their banners up and you get those kind of things. So in hockey, I know they do it in different sports, basketball and football, but in hockey, they put up the person's number and their name. Jim Carswell was one of our officers that unfortunately died of cancer. He had been with us for 15 years, and I wanted some way to kind of represent something, and this is what kind of instigated it. And ever since then, we've been creating these banners for people that have retired in our agency. I hope the tradition keeps going forever and ever, and that place is just laden with folks that have retired. You can't do this unless you've worked in Lake Forest Park for 15 years. So it isn't something they come over in a few years and they're gone, they get this. This is something really special. And I appreciate it. It's super weird that I'm doing my own little thing here, but so I get to go home with everybody's signature. But what's really cool is everybody's call sign. That's what you're identified as. And when I first got hired on here, I was Frank 15. Everybody was a Frank unit until we went over to Norcom and things had changed to the Lincoln numbers. So everybody's got a Lincoln number, but we did have the chief and different levels, captains, commanders, lieutenants, all in the Lincoln number. But Lincoln 1 is represented the chief. Frank 15 was my number when I got here. So this is really special and I appreciate it. So there you go. Thanks for entertaining me on that. And I signed one last bill just a few minutes ago, and that's my last signature there. So, oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right. Thanks for entertaining everybody. Appreciate it. Now go to the party, because this is really what I wanted is everybody and everybody, I don't care who it is, city council, my hockey buddies, Rotary, everybody that wants to just have fun. My son Justin's going to be playing some music and just chilling out, having some beer. I'm saying it, having some beer and some drinks. Huh? It is June 5th, next Friday.
Friday.
We hadn't got the word. Next Friday. Come out to Animal Acres Park around 6, 7 o'clock. I'm not sure when Justin's on, but it'd be really cool to see everybody. So, okay,
Chief,
I am
you wanna-
done.
You want to get pictures with your family? And we can take a brief recess after that.
Come on up.
We don't have to be here. We can, oh, it's all good. So welcome back, everybody. Thank you for staying with us. We're moving on to proclamations tonight. We're going to start with recognizing June 2026 as Pride Month. And Vice Chair Goldman is going to read this to us.
Yes, thank you. Whereas the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer plus LGBTQ plus communities of the greater Puget Sound area are an integral part of the vibrant culture and climate of our area. And whereas the diverse LGBTQ plus communities continue to contribute to widespread academic, economic, artistic, and social spheres within and around our city. And whereas the month of June was designated Pride Month to commemorate the Stonewall riots, which occurred in June of 1969 and are generally regarded as the catalyst of the LGBTQ plus rights movement. And whereas the LGBTQ plus communities of Puget Sound have thoughtfully organized numerous workshops, sporting events, receptions, festivals, concerts, plays, dances, and a host of other inspired activities to participate in during the celebration of Pride Month. And whereas the City of Lake Forest Park remains committed to protecting the civil rights of LGBTQ plus communities, as the power and purpose of this iconic event proves vital in our unified effort to forge a more open and just society. And whereas the active and involved lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer plus people and families make an indelible impact upon the quality of life in the Puget Sound, and Pride Month serves as a call to our collective consciousness to persist in the fight to eradicate prejudice and discrimination everywhere. Now, therefore, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Lake Forest Park proclaim June 2026 to be Pride Month in Lake Forest Park and encourage all residents to recognize the enduring efforts and ongoing contributions of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer plus communities to our city and to our country. Signed this 28th day of May, 2026.
Thank you, Council Member.
Love your cap.
Yes.
It was a gift. The Mariners were doing a Pride night, and so my dad got matching caps for all of us to go, which was good for siblings and I.
Very nice. And Councilmember Riddle is going to read us a proclamation on recognizing June 5th, 2026 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Councilmember.
Here. National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Whereas every day, more than 120 Americans are killed by gun violence and more than 200 are shot and wounded, with an average of more than 17,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas Washington State averages 853 gun deaths every year, with a rate of 12.4 deaths per 100,000 people, a crisis that costs the state $11.9 billion each year, of which $171.7 million is paid by taxpayers. Washington State has the 40th highest rate of gun deaths in the U.S. Whereas cities across the nation, including Lake Forest Park, are working to end the senseless violence with evidence-based solutions. And whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories. And whereas in January 2013, Hadia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed, age 15. And on the first Friday in June, people in the United States will recognize National Gun Violence Awareness Day and wear orange in a tribute to her and other victims of gun violence and the loved ones of those victims. And whereas a group of Hadia's friends asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join Hadia's friends in this campaign by pledging to wear orange on the first Friday of June each year to help raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands of people who should not have access to them, and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our families and communities safe. Now, therefore, the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Lake Forest Park do hereby proclaim June 5th, 2026 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day.
Thank you, Councilmember. Remember, wear your orange next Friday, everyone. And we're moving on to recognizing June 26th as Ride Transit Month. Councilmember Rosenau.
It's exciting. I got to do Bike Everywhere Month last month. And so there's a theme here.
There is a theme.
Whereas, on average, public transit provides more than 100 million passenger trips in Washington state each year from 32 transit agencies, 17 tribal transportation providers, more than 20 community transportation providers, 6 Medicaid transportation brokers, 4 Travel Washington intercity bus program lines, 8 ferry systems, and 1 monorail. And whereas transit agencies in Washington State invest almost $5 billion in transit capital and operations each year, and whereas Move Ahead Washington, the transformative transportation package passed in 2022, will invest more than $3 billion in transit programs and projects over 16 years, thanks to support from the 2021 Climate Commitment Act. And whereas Move Ahead Washington also established the first in the nation Youth Ride Free program, which provides zero-cost fares to more than 1.4 million young people across Washington, including 14.8 million passengers under 18 who rode transit for free in 2023. And whereas nearly 25% of Washingtonians do not drive and may rely on public transit, and many Washingtonians cannot regularly move from place to place in a safe or timely manner because they lack the necessary resources. And whereas a 2021 study from the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine concluded that the energy saved in 2018 by passengers in the US using public transit rather than personal vehicles saved 63 million metric tons of carbon dioxide, whereas investment in transit can yield 49,700 jobs per $1 billion invested. And whereas greater transit use is associated with higher levels of physical activity, and whereas transit is essential for people of color and low-income individuals, and whereas transit provides freedom of movement for youth, seniors, people with disabilities, and all members of the community, and whereas the 2026 completion of the Lake Washington Floating Train Bridge is the first of its kind in the world, an engineering marvel created in part through the work of Lake Forest Park residents to connect communities across Lake Washington. And whereas nearly 60% of the voters of Lake Forest Park supported this SD3 package in 2016, among the highest rates of support in the service area, and whereas transit connects Lake Forest Park residents, workers, shoppers, and visitors with our neighboring communities. And whereas transportation accounts for 69% of carbon emissions in Lake Forest Park, with on-road vehicles representing 31%. And whereas car tires produce toxins that poison endangered salmon in the creeks of Lake Forest Park, Lake Washington, and Puget Sound. And whereas transitioning private car trips to public transit reduces carbon pollution, tire dust, noise pollution, and safety concerns for pedestrians. And whereas the City of Lake Forest Park Climate Action Plan calls for the city to increase transit ridership through education and outreach. And whereas work on transit is made possible by the collaboration of partners across the state who are leading the way in promoting equitable, accessible, and sustainable transportation options. Now, therefore, the city and mayor and city council of the city of Lake Forest Park do hereby proclaim the month of June 2026 as Ride Transit Month in the city of Lake Forest Park and call upon all residents and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with public transit options in the city, to ride public transit, and to recognize the contributions that public transit and public transit workers bring to our community to improve our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Made it.
Need oxygen afterwards? We have some, actually. Deep breath. I've asked Vice Chair Goldman to introduce our friend Amanda.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Amanda Pleasant Brown, who is a government relations supervisor with King County Metro. I've worked with Amanda through forums like the Seashore Transportation Forum, and so I just wanted to invite her up here to accept the proclamation.
There it is. We'll give this.
What do I get to say words or not?
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
You can do a picture when
Okay,
you want to do.
sure, I would love to.
Okay.
Also, I want to say a big thank you to our Sound Transit colleagues who I know finished up their meeting. It was a long day for them, so I know Savannah had hoped to be here, but she wasn't able to join us today. But I just want to say a big thank you to you all. So thank you so much, Mayor French, Deputy Mayor Ferrantani. Thank you so much, Councilmember Rosano, for the proclamation, and Councilmember Goldman so much for your support on Seashore. And I really appreciate working with you all. So every day, Metro provides close to 300,000 trips to get people to where they need to go, which includes services like van pool and van share, and get people to and from work and transit hub in their communities. As the proclamation mentions, Youth Ride Free program enabled by the Move Ahead Washington has been successful in encouraging youth under 18 to take transit now and hopefully into their adulthoods. And they ride every service for free. That includes the water taxi as well. And Metro has also been growing. So we've been growing. This is the second year in a row where we've had the second highest transit ridership in the country. Growth increase. And so we won't be doing this alone. We appreciate your partnership in hosting the community van in your city hall. Look forward to making that even more robust, and then considering ways to promote the service. And so we're grateful that the Lake Forest Park residents have been dedicated transit riders for years. We know the challenges that are here, and it is a testament to your residents. And then we've also seen some increases in transit ridership. So in fall 24 to fall 2025, there's been an 8% increase on the 331 in Kenmore. into Shoreline Community College along Ballinger Way, and then 22% increase on the 322 from Kenmore to South Lake Union First Hill along Bothell Way Northeast. And if you're celebrating FIFA's Men's World Cup, I don't know if you've heard about that, Pride and Juneteenth, Ride Transit. We have lots of great options for folks in a fitting month for June. So we look forward to our continued work and partnership and creative solutions to meet communities' needs. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Amanda. Council, do you want to get a picture with Amanda and the proclamation? Let's see, we need to get somebody's phone. It's got a. Here, oh, he's yours? Okay. Maybe we'll get
All right.
Bill or
Yeah.
Diego or somebody.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, that's perfect.
Thank you so much.
Trying to see you next week.
Yeah.
It's so nice to see you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
All right. Good. Good, Dennis. Yes, we're back to, yes, I'm sorry, we're back. Let me get to, hold on 1 second, folks. Let me get my ducks in a row here when it comes to, there it is. Get this up so I can actually see it. Okay. So we are going to open the, well, I'm sorry, we're going to get staff to introduce the draft transportation improvement plan, and then we're going to open the public hearing and go from there. Director Heaton, please, welcome.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Thank you so much. I'm actually not really here to present tonight so much as to listen and answer questions. I do have the map that we can put up on the screen, which does show the location of the 6-year TIP projects. I want to just start by saying, once again, this is a draft. It's not done yet. I am here to listen, take input, and also it will continue to be a work in progress. Although it is a 6-year plan, that is a budgeting tool for us. Priorities change, new information comes forward. We will continue to be adjusting and improving this plan per our community's needs as we move forward. So given that, I would love to open it up for the public comment.
Colleagues, questions for Director Heaton? We've had the preliminary presentation at our last meeting. Here's the draft of the map. Tonight, we're going to be having the hearing to solicit public comment, and then we'll be moving forward from there as you see fit. Colleagues, questions? Councilmember Goldman.
Thank you for presenting the initial plan at our last meeting, and that the map really helps to kind of show that graphically. I suppose my question is, we can get feedback either direct to the council or through the traffic calming group, but there's large chunks of the city that either they're just historically less likely to reach out to us, or they might feel that like the city's abandoned them, like that we haven't been investing enough. And so I guess my question is, how do we ensure that those silent voices are still part of this process?
Yeah, so there's several things that we look at as we're putting this together. So one of the things, I have a couple of different maps that I've utilized as I've been moving forward into this, and we'll be getting a lot more of this information out for the public as well as we move forward too, and getting our website updated. But one of them is, we talked about this last time, was the map of the pavement overlays since 2007. So now I have a map. We have this map that shows everywhere in the community there's been an overlay since 2007, and we'll be putting this map out onto the website to show. So this is the kind of map I'm using when I'm making these determinations to ensure that we are actually looking at the city as a whole, not just certain areas. So that would be one example. Another example is the Healthy Streets projects that we're trying to work on moving forward. We looked at all over the city when we looked at the healthy streets. This is a map that was created prior to me. But these are the potential healthy streets candidates. And we should be moving forward this year with our first one. And then that'll be kind of a trial and error sort of situation. But then we can, once we have that sort of process really nailed down, I think we'll have a lot more communities coming forward wanting to do that. And this is another one that we're gonna see an improved website presence, and people will have that information, a lot of photos and just a lot of different information, as well as how you apply on that. This next map is still one of my hand-drawn maps because it hasn't quite gotten past that. Kind of looks like a river map actually, but this is our multimodal. This is the start of our multimodal improvement map. And so what I'm doing here is I'm showing areas where we need to connect people to places, or we need to connect people to trails, or we need to connect people to other communities. So this is our multimodal map. And as you'll see when you kind of look at this, is it kind of spans the whole city. We're not just taking comments from people. We're not just taking different things that we hear. We're looking at the city as a whole. We're looking at where people are going, where they need to go. Where are our bus routes? Where are our people living? Where are our schools? Where are our parks? Where are people trying to go, and how can we help them get there? And then another example, and this is a bunch of maps for this one, but this is the last one, are our crash data maps and that kind of information. So again, these kind of maps, they open my eyes, and you can see I've got a couple of things underlined here, and that actually surprised me, took me by surprise. I didn't expect to see that many people hitting parked cars and fixed objects, and that tells us something about what is happening in our city and what kind of things we need to do to change it. And I will say, some of this information is going to back up what we're hearing from the community. Does that answer your question okay?
Yeah, very, very comprehensively. Thanks. I'm glad we're taking a very, very holistic and data-driven approach.
Councilor Rosenau.
One of the things that came up at the town hall, people were asking about the area around Horizon View, and especially on 47th, where it's a park. There's a lot of people walk their dogs, or they walk a circuit. And on 47th is a fairly busy road that then doesn't have sidewalk, and people feel risky there. And I wonder, I don't see anything here, but I know that you've got the 20-year version of this also. So I don't know if it's just a matter of timing or what the thinking is there.
No, that is correct. So 47th hasn't been identified. I'll take a look at that one, because that one wasn't the one that was identified for me. The one that was identified for me was under the 201st to 197th. So that other portion of that, and the intersection at 47th. So I have both of those identified already, but I'll take a look at 47th as well. Because yeah, I don't know it all. And so that's why we're just trying to take all those things in. If you get comments like that from the public, please send them to me. People can always come here, speak. They can send emails directly to us, anything like that. So, and then if, like you said, if it's not shown here, it might be on the 20-year, I call it 20+ year, because, but yeah.
Yeah, good question. Councilor Riddle.
I really appreciate all the data, that goes behind it. I think the one thing that I wanted to just mention is, in the TIP, the 6-year, we're not really doing a lot on the very northern side, nor our Kenmore side. And I know that we haven't done a lot of investment in those areas historically. Do you see perhaps an opportunity for something that's more of a traffic calming, light touch type of activity or treatment that could help in those areas? Or are we not ready to be able to propose a project yet?
So when we're speaking about the northern area, there is sort of an upcoming project for this year that's not on this map. So that project is sort of that traffic calming light touch. And so that's in that 201st area right in there, just right along the and we just did the pavement there.
Mhm.
So that area, we're looking at some traffic calming type solutions for that. That would be this year. So that's what kind of a little bit why that's not being shown on the map, because this is for starts next year.
Yeah, and I think there's kind of those zones that are not by the parks. We tend to emphasize the parks because that's important for folks to get to them. But we've been constrained in the past with our ability to get a lot of projects done. So definitely interested in looking in other neighborhoods as well. But I think this is an amazing start, and I didn't dig into it too much. That's why I'm not gonna say a lot. This is me not saying a lot.
Deputy Furtone, excuse me, I'm losing my voice.
And thanks, Director Heaton. I'm very map oriented, as you know. And are those maps that you were showing by holding them up, are they available on the website yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
So all of these will be, the safety ones will come with the local road safety plan, which we're actually talking about in 2 weeks. And then the multimodal improvement plan you'll see in 2 weeks. And then the Healthy Streets initiative, we're working on a special website for that. So that will end up in there. And then the pavement preservation one, again, it needs its own website. So a lot of web updates that I need to get to, but it's a little bit of a juggling show right now.
And yeah, the reason that I bring that up is because I don't know if you can hold the multimodal one up again, but to emphasize Councilmember Riddle's point. I'm looking at 30th Northeast and 55th Northeast, so the border with Shoreline on the north and the border with Kenmore on the north. And we've heard time and time again that they really are not safe for pedestrians, that traffic literally is at your shoulder as you walk there. And certainly if you're in some kind of limited mobility vehicle, like say a wheelchair, it's really, really difficult to get through that area. So I'm wondering, is there any possibility that we could start thinking about those areas?
This is 30th here, right? So this is already shown on here. We're looking at, let me just look at it here really quickly. For 30th, that seems to me an obvious pedestrian and bike sort of pathway as a multimodal. So we're looking at both bike and ped. And as you get down to the highway here, we're looking at doing a crossing there and with probably a hawk or maybe an RRFB. But when it comes to this highway with as much traffic as it gets, I think it would be a hawk, which is the pedestrian stoplight, basically. And then we're looking at connecting, now this road where I show this line going straight through, this road doesn't actually go through, but we think we might be able to make a pathway go through, not the road, so for bike and ped. And so we're looking at connecting that all the way down. And then you'll see that this purple line then comes down and meets up with this orange line, which is Perkins and 178, I think, and then down to the highway. So, this is a real rough draft here, but essentially I'm trying to look at, well, what kind of facilities are going to be on each kind of road? So the next step on this, and I have like some blue ones down here. I have Bothell Way right here is blue. That's because it currently has sidewalks and it's appropriate for sidewalks. I get into some more tough spots here when I start to look right here. Now, I really need some sort of way to get this portion of our city across Bothell Way and over to the trail here. And so there is the ability to do that here, but I need the bikes to be able to get from this segment to that segment. So that's where we pull it out. We highlight it on the map. We say we need bike facilities here on this roadway. That's not an easy ask. It's not going to come cheap or without pulling teeth, but we're going to put it down there and we're going to build up to it on both sides and then pressure the powers that be to say this is needed to complete the system.
Thank you.
Did I get off track?
Oh,
That's where we're good.
I know you have a lot on your plate. You're putting all of these different things together. I know that the traffic calming is obviously very important to people. I think one thing that would help them understand I know that there's a process there and I know you're working on other processes. Will part of that will that include the way that something is going to be prioritized? Because I think that everybody wants their issue prioritized, but if there's a logical defined way that is published on that page, it might be helpful.
Absolutely. That's exactly our goal, is to have community adopted prioritization so that the community weighs in on what is important to them. Is it that it's close to a school? Is that important? That it's close to a park? That it is maybe doesn't have any facilities right now? You know, how many people walk on it already? Is that important? How many accidents are there? So there's just a lot of different factors that we can pull forward. We have a draft of those ready to go out, and we will be sending them out to the public for their input and feedback. So yeah, we absolutely, prioritization is key. It's key for traffic calming. It's key for complete streets as well, because there's a lot more wants and desires than there are the resources to put it together all at once.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rosenau.
I think I'd mentioned this to you before, and maybe it's on in your notes, and if so, but the pavement replacement on 37th going up the hill from LFP Elementary, that's an area that because of the hill, I've gotten a lot of people commenting that they feel unsafe with their kids walking there because people pick up so much speed going down the hill. I wonder if you've got any traffic calming that will be incorporated into that pavement replacement.
Yeah, so 37th, right here, that's headed north. Yeah, that I have slated as a complete streets project. So I don't know what the particular solution is for that road yet. But that would be something we would be looking at, determining what does make the most sense on that road to reduce speeds. Anytime we're talking complete streets, we're talking about reducing speeds as well.
And that's maybe I mentioned this too, that where I could even imagine a modal filter at the top of that hill to basically make it more of a local access and avoid the cut through that goes through there.
And let me look, is that already on here or not? Because maybe that one's not currently on the Healthy Streets candidates. So
Okay.
maybe that's one that we have to reevaluate and see if that one makes sense for us.
And in that same vein, I wonder, well, with what you were just saying about the street crossing for Bothell Way, is that, I mean, Sound Transit obviously is pretty locked in on what their designs are, but while they're doing work there, is there anything that could be incorporated in while the construction's happening there?
I don't have an answer for that because I haven't been able to review their plans. They haven't even submitted them yet. So.
And then also with that work, I'm imagining that there's going to be a lot of cut through, maybe up to 37th and Sheridan Heights or some of the other parallel streets where it shouldn't go. And I wonder if there are other temporary or sort of prioritizing things in that area just to avoid that cut through and keep highway traffic off of the residential streets.
I think we should definitely look at different ways to mitigate for that. Yeah, it's going to be, in general, that entire project's going to be a big thing we're gonna have to deal with as a community.
Councilmember Riddle.
I noticed that it looks like in your spreadsheet, the LRSP
Local road safety plan.
03, the crosswalk improvements 40th and 178 is currently sort of targeted to be in 2029. And that looks like a very thorough project that would be installed there. Is there a way we can do any intermediate opportunities, additional signage? I know at one point it was floated to reconfigure 40th so it comes in at a right angle rather than the big swooping curves so that folks have to slow down in order to make the turn. Are there any easy steps that we might be able to take as soon as possible before the school year starts the end this September?
40th and 178th, you said?
Yeah.
I'll have to look at it. I don't have an answer to that. Yeah.
I would be happy to look at it with you.
Okay.
And see if there's just anything that we can do.
Colleagues, other questions? Vice Chair Goldman.
Yes, so budget is often a challenge. I'm wondering, when you were putting the budget together for this plan, do you consider possibly cheaper alternatives that would still accomplish the same goal? For instance, extruded curbs rather than full cement sidewalks?
When you look at, it depends on the project. So when we look at some of the traffic calming, those are definitely can be more along the cheaper alternative type projects. When we look at something on, say, 104, SR 104, we're looking at making sure we're appropriately providing that separation between the bikes and the cars because it's such a major roadway. So there's that. When we look at it, yes, we will look at lower costs. In a lot of cases, we'll probably this is what we ideally would have, but this is what we're proposing within this budget cycle because it's what we can afford. But that also takes us into, does it make sense to do this cheap option? Is it going to give us what we want? Or are we going to have to come back and replace it in 2-year time? So rather than putting a cheap option somewhere else. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. But I think looking at all options is always on the table.
Thank you. Colleagues, just quickly, since I've been sort of keeper of some of the historical knowledge, there's the 37th, both 37th programs near the schools have been on the books for over 30 years. Those are top priority. Safe routes to school and complete streets there. To the north, there have been changes affected, including last year on 55th at our northern border with Kenmore and Briar up in that area, to lower the speed limit as well as put your speed is safety sign installations. That was a difficult project from the standpoint of we share that road with our neighbor. And so getting that into place took a little bit of extra effort, but it's making a difference. When I look at some of the other places too, 197th has been a priority for quite some time. We do have a speed camera, or not speed camera, a speed sign there. It is my fervent hope that as we expand the program, that 197th up towards Horizon View Park crossing can be a park zone to slow people down around that curve. And so our friends who live nearby that curve don't have to keep having cars driving to their yard. And also to slow people down for the safety of everyone, of course. There's some other places too as well. And the question of crossings on Bothell Way is a perennial one. We do have the opportunity, undeveloped right away at 160th, undeveloped right away at 153rd, which could be a staircase that could connect down and help people navigate from Sheridan Heights and Briarcrest down easier to the northern part of the Burke-Emmon Trail. There's some other areas as well. I shouldn't say southern part of the Burke-Emmon Trail, excuse me. And there's a big one that Director Heaton and I talked about was the question of a community trail at crossing at 104 and 30th in the undeveloped right of way there. It's a classic walking route on the south side and on the north side, but people can't get across there. So connecting that trail I think is absolutely a top priority and essential. And we've had the requests, as you know, for traffic calming and a crosswalk there by the condos there, the Lake Forest Park on the south side of 104. So just contextually and historically, some of these things have been in the mix. And I'm so pleased that we have the staff now in place that can start aggregating these things. And if you have ideas, please get them to Director Heaton. She listened to me for a better part of an hour about we need things here and here and here and here and here. And I stopped when her head started spinning around. So I'm sure she'll be quite willing to listen to you all as well. Yes, Councilor Good.
I remember a couple of years ago, I just want to remind council, I don't know if I was on council then, but it was about permitting parking permits in light of Sound Transit coming through. It was setting up the ability to get parking permits for our residents so that if other people that are from out of the city can't park on our residential streets. So would that be appropriate to consider in the future?
Absolutely. Let's bookmark that. need to stay within the TIP context, but
Oh, okay.
absolutely something to, that's essential. Colleagues, other questions for Director Heaton, then we should get on to the hearing. Councilmember Riddle.
Comment, I did through Google Maps, I did notice we have a lot of faded existing crosswalks. And being that there's already a crosswalk there, we might want to consider repainting those if it happens to be in an area that would be useful. And I imagine that might be a lighter lift because it exists, it's just faded.
We have a contract with King County who does most of those for us, and they are actually coming and doing striping this weekend. And so they should be doing restriping. That's anything that's painted. The thermoplastic, which is what a lot of the times the crosswalks are thermoplastic, they're melted down. They are doing that as well, but not this weekend. So that's coming soon as well. Okay.
Thank you, colleagues. Okay, thank you very much, Director Heaton. Appreciate your time. It's exciting to see these things move forward, and it's, as a reminder to everybody, the public service message is this. Some of these programs are brought to you by our traffic camera revenue, so which is a restricted fund. With that, we're going to open the public hearing on the transportation. Make sure I read this correctly here. We're going to open the public hearing on Resolution 26-2075, Transportation Improvement Program for the calendar years 2027 through 2032. Oh, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Let's see. First of all, I want to make sure we've got here. David, would you like to speak? Welcome, please. Join us at the podium.
Hi, there's a button on there that you can raise it up if you need to. You're taller than some of our speakers.
Where? Oh, thank you. Got it. Thank you. That's good. Hi, I'm David Stekstra. I'm a resident of Shoreline. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you for including Northeast Perkins Way on the Transportation Improvement Plan. That's an important connection for people traveling by bike, and it does not feel very safe in the uphill direction right now, though. So I'm really looking forward to the improvements on Northeast Perkins Way, as well as all the other Complete Streets projects that are planned. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, David. Appreciate your comments. Sarah Phillips, welcome again.
Okay. I'm actually here to talk about the multimodal plan, and I wanted to talk about Lime bikes. And they're a big mess, and they're everywhere, and they're not being picked up, and we should have them. It is a way to get the last mile of transportation done. And if we had a contract with Lime Bike, perhaps coordinated with our colleagues with Kenmore and Shoreline, we might be able to have more leverage about having them picked up and being coordinated. But it is a resource for getting people who don't have cars or who don't, for that last, it's the last mile. That's why I got an electric bike. I couldn't get up the hill. I could go down and ride the trail, but last mile up. And green bikes, Lime bikes, I think, provide an opportunity. They come with their liabilities, but if we had a contract with them, you have greater leverage. So I think you should consider them.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, is there anyone else? Mark Phillips. Please join us, Mark.
Mark Phillips, resident of Lake Forest Park. I haven't studied this material, so I probably shouldn't be allowed to speak at a public hearing, but here goes anyway.
I know you have an opinion, though.
I just wanted to say that I hope that the thinking about the McKinnon Creek Trail, I guess, is the point I wanted to bring up, and I think it may well be coming to the purview of this kind of a picture of transportation. It is one of the few regrets that I have from my time on the council that we were not able to come to some agreement with the water district to make that trail work. The difference between we were, as you know, pretty set on a direct line through the Waterfield area, which makes a lot of sense still in terms of accessibility and other kinds of things, versus a more indirect route that was proposed by the water district. Well, I think that just remains a tremendous potential gem. It really is 2/3 of the way between Ballinger Way and Horizon View Park, that trail. So I would really like to see that happen in the future, regardless of what it takes. There are certainly advantages too to a route that skirts around the Wellfield area. It could be an interesting kind of walk with accessibility at several points along the way. So I just wanted to put a plug in for the McKinnon Creek Trail, and you're thinking about that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate that. Oh, yes, we did receive public comments. I'm just acknowledging this, folks. Who did we receive from?
We received public comments from Mark Withers and Suzanne Withers, focusing on 35th and 40th Avenues Northeast.
Great. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else in council chambers that'd like to make public comment during the hearing? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Matt, we are moving on to consent calendar. Goodness. I'd entertain a motion for adoption.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions, comments, concerns, heartburn? Hearing none, that's adopted by unanimous consent. Thank you, council. Moving on to old business, item 9, resolution 26-2074, authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for professional services with Sarah Roberts, PLLC. This is our second presentation. Welcome back, Administrator Hill. You look rested.
Thank you, Mayor, and council. I received no questions from council since 2 weeks ago when we met on this. I did want to point out in the agenda cover, as I was reading through it tonight, that this contract began the same year as Chief Harden, 2001. But this has not been updated in those 25 years. Hence, the reason for the new contract is as compared to just rolling over the existing contract, which we have done for, the past 25 years with just some minor changes. Usually on a year-to-year basis, that's just cost of living. Whatever the non-represented employees got, that's what Sarah got. That does not recognize all the changes in the legal landscape and technology, our addition of traffic cameras over time. And so when you look at this contract, you probably get a little sticker shock that we're going from $9,000 a month to $18,000 a month. But that is the reality of where we are today with inflation. As you know, over the past 5 years, it's trending 24% plus. Within that $18,000 per month, $3,000 of that is specifically to prosecution services related to traffic camera violations. And these are the new traffic cameras, so 24/7, where a lot of work is required. So within the contract, that $3,000 will, as the mayor said earlier, be brought to you by the Traffic Safety Fund. We'll pay for those portion of the services. The other 15 comes out of the general fund. But this is a huge swing. And as you've talked about during your budget challenges, this is one of those items that we had identified early on with cost increases. The one other change in this contract is just cost of living provision is now June to June, Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue, CPI, 2% minimum, 5% maximum. So that's a little different than you've seen in the past, but that's how we've seen every professional services contract that we've dealt with over the many years going to that model. So I stand for any questions you might have tonight on this proposed contract.
Friends, any questions for Administrator Hill on this professional services contract? You have them speechless once again.
I know, that's rare.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Administrator Hill, or Deputy Mayor Fertani.
So I apologize for not knowing this answer in advance, but do we need to act on it tonight?
The one benefit of acting on it tonight is there are some services wrapped into this contract that the court needs now that aren't being provided because they are not in the current contract. So it would be beneficial the sooner that it is adopted. We can get those services underway for the courts as they try and do their work. So it would be beneficial if it was adopted tonight.
Well, colleagues, what's your pleasure? Chair Goldman?
Yeah, if you want. In that case, I'll make a motion that we waive the 3-touch rule to open debate on resolution 26-2074 authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for prosecution services with Sarah Roberts, PLLC.
I hear a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to waive the three-touch rule to begin discussion of resolution 26-2074. Vice Chair Goldman.
Speak to the motion. While it does have a budgetary impact, it's something we do need to have a prosecutor in the city. And as Administrator Hill mentioned, there are services the court can't provide until we adopt this new contract. And so it's a service to the public for us to adopt this on our second touch.
I would clarify that it's not services that the court can't provide, it's services that aren't being provided by the prosecuting attorney to the court. It just makes everything run more smoothly.
But that overall, that is still a net positive to the public.
Correct.
For
Correct.
all of these services to integrate.
Yes.
Thank you both. Did you have a comment?
My comment is that I'm in favor of waiving the three-touch rule for exactly those same reasons.
Any other comments? All those in favor of waiving the three-touch rule regarding resolution 26-2074, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. It passes unanimously. Please, Deputy Mayor.
I will move to approve resolution 26-2074, authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for prosecution services with Sarah Roberts.
Second. Been moved and seconded to adopt resolution 2074, excuse me. Any further discussion, colleagues? All those in favor of adoption of resolution 26-2074, waiving the three-touch rule, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Ayes have it. Thank you very much, council. Appreciate your
Thank you.
help in that regard. Ms. Roberts' firm does a great job for our community. Okay, we have new business ordinance 1317, master use permit, Forge Fiber 37 LLC. Mr. McLean, welcome. You came out from behind the curtain.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. This is a franchise agreement, and even though it says master use permit, this is for a utility, a telecommunications utility. Basically, a franchise agreement allows us to manage utilities and public right of ways, make sure that they're managed and properly installed. And a big shout out to City Attorney Pratt for writing this up, because I probably would have torn my hair out. And online, I believe we have Carrie Nations from Forged Fiber here. And they are a new company. I think they're bought some of their assets from Lumen, if I'm correct. I don't know if.
Yes, Carly's on. Hi. Yes, Forge Fiber is actually, it's a subsidiary of AT&T Inc. and they did purchase a substantial portion of Lumen's existing assets in the right-of-way fiber assets. And so we're looking for this to secure the rights to operate within the right-of-way, these existing assets that they purchased.
Thank you, Ms. Nations. Questions for, yes, please, Councilmember Good.
So am I to understand it correctly that there's already fiber in the city and you are a new company and you are assuming what was existing and you want to be able to continue in the future?
Yes. So the plan for now is to operate what's existing that they purchased from Lumen, and that map is within the agreement. And then the plans would be to, in the future, hopefully expand and offer it to more of the community of this in the city.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Colleagues, other questions? Councilmember Riddle.
So, Mr. McLean, it sounds like this is kind of a new version because this is kind of the first new company
Yes.
that we've done this to. Was there anything unique in this master agreement that you would like to bring to our attention that maybe we hadn't been doing in the prior agreements?
I would probably pass that to City Attorney Pratt.
No, our Lake Forest Parks code for these master unit use agreements is very it has a lot of detail. And we are basically following that code and putting it into these agreements. So no, this is your standard MUP agreement.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I appreciate it.
I have another
Good.
question about, I did briefly read through it and it does mention above ground facilities that would be, I suppose, camouflage. Do we have any existing above ground, I guess, antenna arrays that are disguised? And what is the plan for new ones?
Ms. Nations, I think that's to you.
So this is a fiber network, so there's no antennas associated with it. It's not like a typical wireless communication facility. So aerial facilities would be when the fibers run like on the poles above ground. So like looks like a transmission line type thing versus like underground when you bury the fiber.
Thank you, but it's in the agreement, so that's why I was confused. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, because we're little.
Okay.
And then, sorry.
Okay. Just a quick question about the map. The red are the fiber lines. Is the green existing connections to like residential services? I'm kind of curious what the green is in your map.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up. Sorry. I haven't
No
looked at
worries.
this one. Let's see. Yeah, so the red is aerial and the green is underground. So those are all existing facilities. It's just differentiating what is, and most of the buried, to me, it looks like the stuff that's connecting to the customers directly. So the line that would
Thank you.
go to a customer. Yep.
Deputy Mayor Furtani and then Councilmember Rosenbaum. Okay.
Right, and I think this is probably a question for Ms. Nation. I'm wondering, will our residents, since this is a pretty inclusive permit, notice any disruptions, not of their service, but of basically just like the ground or having trucks in the neighborhood that block the road or anything like that? How often do you expect something like that to happen?
So for the existing facilities, typically any sort of kind of operational work would be if something needs to be fixed or any sort of maintenance work. I think the code is pretty clear on what type of permits are required when any sort of work is done and what kind of notifications to residents and how long and how quickly we need to do it. And then emergency work typically has, we can do that. Think without a permit. I'd have to look at the code again or double check that. But then for future expansions, that would, we would have to submit permits, follow the code of what's required, what sort of noticing is required, what sort of traffic control protections are required. So in the future, there could be disruptions based on that expansions, but for this initial work of just taking over what belongs, what's existing, it would be minimal, depending on maintenance needs.
All right, thank you.
Colleagues, any other questions? We'll be bringing this back to council. Sorry.
This may be the same question in just wrapping my head around it. But I know during some of the diversions, the same time when some of the first diversion was happening for the culvert project, there were fiber projects trying to happen in some of the same streets and there was a challenge doing coordination with the fiber company and everything else that was happening. Is there anything different about this agreement than whatever would have existed before to address that circumstance? It's a big question. I'm sorry.
I think probably I should provide some context because we have some new people here in the mix. There not only were there issues with subcontractor pulling fiber optic cables on 35th, but also on 178th going back over a year and a half ago. Same operator. My understanding, this is subcontractor to I don't know that there was, I'm assuming the subcontractor to someone, but it was not to the point where we had to supervise their work.
Yeah.
Yeah, please, Attorney Pratt.
So if they're, if an entity that has an MUP with the city, if they are going to do work on their existing fiber, they have to get a right-of-way permit from the city. In that particular case, terms of the right-of-way permit were violated. So,
Yeah.
but they do have to get a right-of-way permit. And
So something in the agreement wouldn't necessarily have fixed it.
right.
Yeah, okay. And then my other question was, I've gotten some questions from people in the community who live on private roads and with their neighbors would like fiber service and are unclear what goes into that. And I'm not sure whether this is a place where that conversation happens or if that's a separate conversation.
Yeah, this wouldn't apply because it only applies to city right-of-way.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Councilor? Any other questions, Council? I think this is our first touch. We can bring it back. Thank you, Mr. McLean. Appreciate your time very much. Let's see. We are moving on to council discussion or action. Budget Chair Riddle, I understand that this item A is not necessary for this evening. Is that your concurrence?
Unless
Concur with that?
anybody has had any thoughts since the cow earlier this evening, we can skip this one.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councilmember. Apologies, I had another commitment earlier today and could not attend. Councilmember reports, highlight of the evening. Who would like to tee up first? Councilmember Golden, do you have anything? Deputy Member Fertoni.
Before Mr. Phillips leaves, I was going to say that the McKinnon Creek Advisory Committee has met a couple of times in the past couple of months, so there is some movement there, mostly getting to know you kind of stuff. But also on June 10th is the next meeting of that committee, where I'm told there will be a tour of the well field to get an idea of where the trail alignment might be and what work needs to be done. So, and don't want to overpromise, but basically, please stay tuned. And anybody in the community is interested, there is an advisory committee made of representation from the city as well as the water district and the at-large community. So it's a really diverse group, and I'm hoping that we see more faces.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor.
It's a fun tour you
Yeah.
guys doing.
Okay. Any other Councilmember Resma?
I today went to the PSRC General Assembly. We get 1.68 votes or something.
Yeah.
So all the votes that happened were unanimous in any event, so it wouldn't have changed the result. But it was an interesting gathering. It was people from all over the place getting together, and just the roll call of cities having their votes in was fun to sit through. Mayor Wilson opened it up, and County Executive Zahalai was there as well before they all had to clear out for the Sound Transit meeting, which was not quite simultaneous, but close, and was often referenced through the proceedings. We voted to adopt the 4-year regional transportation plan, which covers road safety, road maintenance, public transit, multimodal, all of that at the county or at that regional level, and is necessary in order for them to qualify for federal grants and other things. So that was approved. And everything that Sound Transit does now will have to wait for the next 4-year cycle of that. So, and then there was a presentation from a consultant, and then a conversation with Brad Smith of Microsoft, Eric Nordstrom, and I'm forgetting now the name of the person from Morgan Stanley. So business leaders speaking about the broad business environment in the region and what challenges they're seeing, and the sort of how we make sure that the broad region remains competitive, and affordability and housing were way at the top of that list. The broader mess of our state tax structure was also part of the conversation, and some of the CEOs were coming to it from a particular tax bracket and therefore conversation. But I mean, as we know, it's a challenge. The level on which we're dealing with it for what happens at town center is a different level than what Microsoft is thinking of for where they site data centers and office buildings, but it is all part of the same conversation. And so the conversations that we're having earlier about affordability of housing speak to the broader regional competitiveness, the degree to which the business environment in the Puget Sound region has sort of been dipping down relative to the rest of the nation in the last few years. It is driven in part by things that we, as part of a big collective action problem with all of those municipalities are all part of the solution to turning all that around for the region and for all of our long-term benefit. So it was interesting. There's a lot to come out of it and a lot of conversations that it taps into. So
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Riddle.
I had one of those serendipity moments. I was coming to, I think it was the Budget and Finance meeting last week, and I wanted to swing through Town Center a little early, grab something to eat, and noticed there was a Chamber of Commerce signage out in front of Always Summer, and they were having sort of a meet and greet with different business people there. And it's really good to see that, people are interested in gathering and sharing their business acumen and making those connections and really strengthening the business environment here in Lake Forest Park. So I was excited to be able to poke my head in and then had to run out.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other Councilmember reports? Councilmember, Vice Chair Goldman.
Not so much a report, but I just did some rapid research on Sound Transit's meeting. It was a very notable meeting because they were voting on basically restructuring their plans for the next decades. Most relevant to us is that all of the parking along the Stride 3 line has been indefinitely deferred. Pretty sure the subtext of that is canceled, but officially it's indefinitely deferred. Also, Ballard Link, it looks like that's just only going to go to Seattle Center, so it won't actually reach Ballard. That doesn't as directly impact us, but that's probably the single most expensive project that they were looking into.
And did they not wind up? There was talk of reallocating from our sub-region to...
That amendment failed.
That failed, okay.
Thank you for the update. It's been a big day with Sound Transit and other things. I'll be very brief. Two things, just really very quick. Well, three things actually. I attended the Sound Cities board meeting last week. I can't speak highly enough of that group of people. They're so dedicated and so committed to bringing the region together and making sure that everybody's heard. And we had a very robust discussion at the end of the meeting about the challenges in middle housing, particularly about detached and attached ADUs, issues with utility costs. There have been anecdotes about people being able to build a detached unit, and then the permitting and the utility costs have run them close to, one of the anecdotes was $300,000 for this building the structure and everything within it, and $200,000 for the permitting and the utilities. $500,000 for a cottage is ridiculous, folks. And we as electeds have to find a way to streamline that process because it's pushing people completely out of our communities and out of our region. So we need to raise our voices with the legislature and say, we got to get this sorted out. The legislature has done a great job of patting themselves on the back about passing middle housing bill, but they haven't helped us streamline, particularly on the utility costs. And with utility providers like PSC and Seattle City Light increasing their costs daily, practically, it seems like, and they're very intractable. We've got to start working to make sure oversight of those fee structures are commensurate with the needs of our region. At full stop. $500,000 for a 900 square foot cottage is unbelievable. And that is in places that are out. We're not talking about in city. So it gets very, very expensive and to build these, and there's no economic benefit to a developer to do it right now. They'd rather just take time and build their McMansion because of the economies of scale there. And it's very sad. So, and I won't go on too long about this. I do, without naming any names, there are some folks in this community that are working very hard to support local people, and making sure that they can find places to build a small home or to remodel a home. And it's a deeper conversation offline, but I do want to give a shout out to those folks that are sharing their success and passing it forward to newer generation of folks and older folks as well. The other thing, just really quickly, there have been a lot of rumors swirling around about town center and merchants and stuff like that. I would just ask everybody, let's go to the facts, because it could be injurious to some of the businesses, and some of the things that have been spread as rumors have been incorrect. And so I want to make sure that we keep things sorted there. And the last thing I wanted to say is it is warm out there, and there are kids and parents running around on the sidewalks and where we have them. And let's all be really mindful that there are tons of pedestrians out there right now. I mean, today there are hundreds and hundreds of people walking around your town center and the Burke, and even just right before the committee of the whole and before this council meeting. So I know we're all committed to making sure people stay safe. Our PD does a fantastic job of being out there and visible, and really looking forward to seeing that motorcycle on the road too. Have we got the motorcycle yet? Close, okay. So that'll be helpful. And I'm supposed to have a feel-good story to end with. Secret Gardens. What's that? Secret Gardens. Oh, yeah, Secret Gardens tour is coming up. Is it next week or the following? 20th. 20th. That's yeah, next month. I can't believe we're into June. So is there anything else for the good of the order?
I just wanted to share a neighbor moment. My neighbor Eric across the street, he knows who he is, took the trouble to basically he got a new electric power blower, really quiet, for those kind of things. But he basically did all of our sidewalks, all of our driveways. Very nice. Thank you.
I think that's the first time we heard of kudos for having a neighbor out using their blower in the street. Yeah.
Oh, it must be
That's
really
awesome.
quiet then. That's impressive. Okay. Administrator Hill, anything you want to share from your?
Very SCA reporting back.
It is.
More information listed there.
Yeah.
Including a street sweeper name contest.
Yes. Yeah.
So excited for that.
Indeed.
A name contest.
Sweepy McSweet face. There you go. You beat me to it.
Sweep you off your feet.
Fine sleeping life.
All right. Well, many thanks to the PD and particularly to Chief Harden. Really appreciate everything the PD does, and Chief Harden's service for 25 years, extraordinary career, and he will be missed, but we have a standing commitment to get together for lunch very regularly. So I'm excited about that. Nothing else for the good of the order? We're adjourned.
Executive session.
Oh, executive session. Oh.
You were so close.
Yes.
To my credit, Administrator Hill forgot about the executive session this morning, so I'm. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Let's see. What are you thinking, Administrator Hill?
Probably let's say 15 minutes. Director Moore will be online for this,
Okay.
and I'm going to use online to share my.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have to ask everybody to exit that's not on staff to exit the council chambers. It's not part of the team because it's confidential. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks for coming. Thank you.
So welcome back, everybody. We're coming back from an executive session, and with if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we are going to be adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a great evening.
Mm.